Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Apocryphal Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Friday Apocryphal and podcast. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering the Wisdom of Solomon in chapters 1 through 3.
Are we saying Wisdom of Solomon or the Wisdom of Solomon or the Book of Wisdom of Solomon, as is on these wonderful pieces of paper that you handed me?
Yes, I gave you some wonderful pieces of paper because Amazon has not yet delivered the book that is filled with pieces of paper.
Well, I guess we'll be saying the Wisdom of Solomon.
Yes.
You can say Wisdom of Solomon, Lawrence, and he can say the Wisdom of Solomon, and I'll say the Book of the Wisdom of Solomon, and then we'll get them all. We'll cover our bases.
That would be
sounds
wise.
like a horrible idea.
That would be very wise.
We'll cover our bases then.
Yeah.
Well, while it would cover our bases,
it'd be stupid.
Nobody would be quite sure what we're saying.
True. Well, why don't you tell us about this wisdom literature?
Yes, more wisdom literature. All right, so it has went by a couple of names. So two of the most common being, of course, the Book of Wisdom. That's one of them. Mm-hmm. And the Wisdom of Solomon. So the Book of Wisdom comes from the Latin Vulgate, and the Wisdom of Solomon comes from the Greek Septuagint. The latter title derives from the middle section of the book, where the unnamed speaker is immediately recognized as Solomon.
Oh, well, it was really popular to say that your author of your wisdom literature was Solomon.
It was popular. You're certainly not wrong. I mean, when you have a person who is so wise, you're going to want to say that all the wisdom stuff is from him.
There's a lot of stories out there about Solomon
that
aren't included in these wisdom literature pieces, where Solomon actually does cool things.
Like the Testament of Solomon?
Like when he binds demons to a vessel and throws it at the bottom of a lake.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Nope, not in this book.
No.
This is just sayings.
You're really selling the show right now, buddy.
We'll make it worth your time.
You guys voted for this. You wanted...
That is accurate, yes.
More proverbs.
So this is for you.
Yep. This is what you voted for. Don't blame us.
All right,
blame the Apocrypha.
So I'm going to go over
I'm going to blame Reuben.
Oh, no.
Just you.
Well, that's horrible.
I'm going to go over a few things. Do you guys want to cover the subjects that are covered in here first, or do you want to cover when this was written?
Let's talk about when it was written.
When it was written. Great. I got to get some stuff out of my throat.
Was it not written that this was written at some point in time?
The first unambiguous reference to the Book of Wisdom stems from the 2nd century CE in the writings of Irenaeus. He was a church father. Two references are made to Wisdom 2:24 and 12:10. Quote, "Everyone follows the desires of his depraved heart, nurturing a wicked jealousy through which death entered the world." And also, "From generation to generation, the Lord gives an opportunity to repent to all those who desire to return." References become multiple in the writings of Clement of Alexandria, who continuously refers to the Book of Wisdom and treats it as a canonical book. The Book of Wisdom is cited among the list of books held to be canonical by the Church in the Muratorian canon. Interesting, and that's one of I think that might be our earliest actual canon list.
Whoa!
I think I'm not.
Snap.
I'm not sure if that's right. I think it's definitely one of the earliest, if not the earliest. Interestingly, in the Muratorian canon, the Book of Wisdom is located among the canonical books of the New Testament. Anyone who is interested in canon studies, every community kind of had their own groups, their kind of own scriptures, I guess, their own sets of scripture, and then eventually just won the day. It was just what was in use at the time, just kind of happened. and then that became canon.
At least until the Protestants came around.
Yeah, we'll definitely hit on that one too, actually, in just a little bit.
Of course, it's in no Jewish canon.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, now as to who would have written this, so of course we're not sure exactly who, but it was probably written in Alexandria, and some scholars have thought that it may have been Philo of Alexandria who wrote it. So the great affinity between many phrases in the Book of Wisdom and in the writings of Philo, 20 BCE to 50 CE, has brought attention to their relationship. Although they share a common set of concerns and many phraseological affinities, there are no clear citations between them. It would be tempting to see in the Book of Wisdom the result of Philo's personal attempt to write a more religious and poetic work over and above the philosophical and allegorical works for which he is famous. The greatest stumbling block to identifying Philo as the author of the Book of Wisdom is his penchant for allegorical interpretation and its absence in wisdom. Similarly, although wisdom's personification of wisdom bears similarities to the Logos theology of Philo, the former does not employ Platonic philosophical categories as Philo does. Still, the affinities between the two testify to the distinct likelihood that they shared a common cultural background and could not have been far apart in time, which is fair, because the date that is usually placed on this text is anywhere within 30 years of the turn of the era. Yeah. So either it could be 30 BCE or 30 CE, somewhere in there. So
even though nobody references it until 170 years after that later date.
Well, that's from what we have.
Yeah.
And it's unclear if there are any references in the New Testament. There may be.
Of course, given that what was quoted are just sayings, they could be sayings that predate the writing of this book too.
It could be, yeah, but for some phrases, yes, you could say that these are just kind of like stock phrases, right? But it appears that those specific ones
don't pop up anywhere else.
Yeah, apparently, or are just like really rare or something.
Well, that's neat. So this is definitely later than the Old Testament stuff that we've been reading.
Yes, but it is just before the New Testament stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is good because, if you've been following along in Atheist Sunday School, we are going to eventually be in the New Testament, but we are much closer to the end of the Old Testament than we are to the beginning of the Old Testament.
Yeah,
by far.
That's true, and it's great. It feels great to almost be done with that.
Yep. Even though modern Judaism isn't based on,
it is not.
No.
So on the question of unity, although the style does change throughout, like the genre actually kind of changes throughout, it is a unity. The ideas carry over. It's just presented in a different way, it seems. So, of course, this is a Greek text originally. It was thought for a long time to be Hebrew, but it was Greek, and because of that, it doesn't fall under Hebrew wisdom literature. It's Greek wisdom literature.
Oh, we're jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Oh, man.
There is a specific kind of wisdom literature this is. Let me see if I can find the exact identification. It's called Exhortatory Discourse is what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we just talked about the date of the book and around the time it was written, and the sources are, kind of make sense for a book of this time. There's probably a good amount of philosophical works that were considered, good amount of Greek philosophical works, and definitely the Bible, the Old Testament. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
let's see. I did want to talk about the history a little bit, just to put some context onto this.
And the themes.
Yeah, we'll get into the themes. They're going to stand out pretty hardcore. So the tension. This is on the history of the time period.
Okay.
The tension that the author of the Book of Wisdom highlights between justice and injustice, between the Egyptians and the righteous, also mirrors the tension between the Jewish community and other inhabitants of Alexandria. Although Alexandrian Jews had been granted certain rights by Emperor Augustus in continuity with the policies of the Ptolemies, the poll tax that was introduced in 24 BCE threw the status of the Jewish community into question. The criteria for applying the tax made a distinction among Greek citizens who were exempt, Hellenes, I think, who paid a lower tax, and the Egyptian natives who paid the tax in full. The Jews of Alexandria sought to establish Greek citizenship, and the Greeks vehemently barred them from doing so. The tension reached tragic proportions in 38 CE when the Jews were attacked in a pogrom-like manner. Synagogues were destroyed or desecrated with portraits of Caligula bearing divine titles. The following year, Philo himself led the Jewish delegation to Emperor Caligula to argue for the rights that had originally been granted them by Augustus. But no positive results were forthcoming. With the assassination of Caligula in 41 CE, the Jews revolted in Alexandria. This led the new emperor, Claudius, to settle the dispute once and for all with his forceful letter to the Alexandrians in 41 CE. The letter of Claudius essentially maintained the status quo. Greeks were reprimanded for their hostility towards the Jewish community, but the Jews were told to be satisfied with their position and not to strive for Greek citizenship.
Well, that's a far cry from the story of Maccabees.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite.
Almost, yeah.
And you'd figure that they would have learned their lesson in Egypt last time.
You'd think.
But nope, they're like, oh, yeah, we'll go back here. No, it's totally cool. Egypt's not a problem.
They'll be fine, yeah. So
words to live by.
This is something that just stood out to me because I didn't know the actual name of this literary structure. But you know when it kind of sandwiches literary structure?
Like when it has bookends?
Yeah, but then it like completely goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Like it starts off with... well, actually, let's use an example right here.
Like a palindrome kind of.
Yes, but it goes like forward and then back.
Mm.
So it goes like A, B, C, D, C, B, A. That kind of sandwiching. Yeah. Okay, so I have just learned this today. That is called a literary diptych.
Ah, a literary diptych.
Yes, and that's used a lot.
Diptych.
Okay. It's used a lot. Especially in Mark as well, and in this text too. So comes up a lot. That's what it's called, and the term is derived.
To be fair.
What?
It's cool.
Okay. The term is derived from iconography, where two images are set side by side for the purpose of complementarity or contrast.
All right.
Yeah. Then some of the themes, death, immortality, justice. Those are pretty much the big ones. They personify wisdom, but of course we've seen plenty of personifications of wisdom already.
Wow, so it's just like Plato,
the Song of Solomon. Remember the Song of Solomon, guys, with all of its wisdom literature and personification of wisdom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
that wasn't Song of Solomon. That was something else.
That was in Proverbs.
It wasn't Proverbs.
It was also in Ben Sira.
Yes.
Well, gee, it's all over the place.
Song of Songs.
Yeah, that was the sexual one.
Yeah, that was the sexy one.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it sexy per se, but it was the sexual one.
Oh, I can't win for trying.
Nope.
All right. And getting back to the canonical status of the work, because we were talking about this thing earlier.
How's the status in Ethiopia?
I don't actually know.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I think that they have pretty much everything.
They have a lot. Because they have a narrow canon and a wider canon.
They've got something like over 80 books.
It's like 81 or something. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. The acceptance of the wider canon was settled definitively in the Roman Church at the Council of Trent, 1546. The Orthodox Church accepted the Roman canons of Scripture at the Council of Jerusalem in 1672. But since the 18th century, a renewed discussion has emerged among the Orthodox communities regarding the inspiration of the deuterocanonical books. The Protestant and Reformed traditions follow the lead of Martin Luther, who was inspired by Jerome's preference for the smaller canon. However, even Martin Luther accepted the deuterocanonical or apocryphal books as inspirational reading while withholding their canonical status. So it is not surprising to note that one of wisdom's best modern commentaries stems from the pen of a Protestant scholar. It was from C.L.W. Grimm.
Whose commentary we
don't have. It's in German too.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Since there is little doubt as to the Jewish origin of the work, Jewish scholars also study wisdom as a source for understanding the currents of Jewish thought during the Hellenistic period. Yeah. I mean, those are pretty much the basics, honestly. We pretty much covered all we can cover there before we get into more specific stuff.
Well, then why don't we get into it? I have the Book of Wisdom of Solomon printout that you printed out. I don't know who the author is.
I also don't know.
Oh.
But we will be getting the one that we will be using once it comes in. Hopefully it's here soon. Is going to be from the Anchor Bible series. Of course, we've used that series a lot.
Yes, it is a good series. We also have Eerdman's commentary on the Bible.
Yeah, we do. And, of course, what I was just reading from earlier. This is the New Interpreter's Bible Commentary, Volume 6.
Yes, it has the Apocrypha in it.
Basically. The commentaries on all the stuff. Yeah, it's got a whole bunch of it.
Well, why don't I hop into it then? We're going to get some wisdom. Ready to be wise? Nah. What is wisdom, Lawrence?
Wait, hold on. No, I can't exactly answer this one. It's not just intelligence, it's not just knowledge. It's a specific kind of knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. That you gain through like life experience.
Okay, so you have beliefs.
Yes.
You have true and false beliefs.
Yes.
Among true beliefs, you have justified true beliefs.
Yes.
Right. Then you have knowledge, which is a subset of justified true beliefs. Right.
And that's where you add wisdom, right?
Well, wisdom is a subset of knowledge because wisdom, you like have the ability to teach it to others and explain it simply. That's basically the difference.
Okay.
It's like when Einstein, teach it to a 5-year-old.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. But what is wisdom when it comes to wisdom literature? Because that's Plato, man. That's not this.
I mean, it's not super far off. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we were reading about, and all the other wisdom literature that we were reading. Yeah. That's pretty much just like, here are, some sayings. Some are better than others, let's face it. Mm-hmm. And this is, and they predominantly come from some kind of teacher, from some wise person.
So wisdom is just things that a wise person said,
which are usually philosophical in nature.
Yeah,
and that's why
they don't usually provide actual arguments in favor of their points.
Rarely. I mean, you could say that, like in Job, for example, right?
Well, Job has arguments.
Yeah,
right? But is Job wisdom literature?
Yes.
I don't know, because
it addresses the problem of evil.
Well, when you look at the book of the Wisdom of Solomon, right, or if you look at Proverbs or the Wisdom of Ben Sira, there's no story going on there. Now, Job presents a story that has argumentation within it, which I would think makes it a different literary genre than this, right?
I mean, it's not like a proverbial thing, but it is still wisdom literature.
All right, well, let's read some wisdom literature. The Book of Wisdom of Solomon, Chapter 1. Love justice, you that are the judges of the earth. Think of the Lord in goodness, and seek him in simplicity of heart. For he is found by them that tempt him not, and he sheweth himself to them that have faith in him. For perverse thoughts separate from God, and his power, when it is tried, reproveth the unwise.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we get a lot, right? Like the whole like perverse thoughts kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like righteousness is a very big thing for really all of Jewish literature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it interesting that this is definitely not one of these omnipresent gods, right? At least in Wisdom of Solomon here, because he's defining things that separate from God, which would be impossible metaphysically with an omnipresent God.
You could say that, but couldn't you also argue that it'd be like in spirit? Distancing in spirit.
Like, if we introduce woo into whatever we're doing, then we can just say anything.
Is that really far off from this, though?
Yeah, it is pretty far off. There's some distance. It's what he just said.
Right. There's some spiritual distance there.
All right. For the Holy Spirit... I skipped a line. For wisdom will not... they all start with 4. And it's verse 4. For wisdom will not enter into a malicious soul, nor dwell in a body subject to sins. For the Holy Spirit of discipline will flee from the deceitful, and will withdraw himself from thoughts that are without understanding, and he shall not abide when iniquity cometh in. For the spirit of wisdom is benevolent, and will not acquit the evil speaker from his lips. For God is witness of his reins, and he is a true searcher of his heart, and a hearer of his tongue.
So there's quite a good amount of fairly interesting stuff here. So by the time this short section is completed, the author has clearly dropped any pretense of addressing the rulers of the earth. His words are clearly aimed at those within his own community whom he regards as blasphemers, whose counsels are ungodly and deeds are lawless. What they are actually saying, which has so upset him, doesn't become apparent until the next chapter. But how he will deal with them is already clear. They will be condemned, but not logically refuted. In calling wisdom a spirit, the author is continuing a process which may have begun in Sirach 24:3, if, as seems likely, that is interpreting Genesis 1:2. In the Wisdom of Solomon, the Spirit, or Holy Spirit, or Spirit of the Lord, Wisdom of the Lord, whatever, are largely interchangeable. This assimilation of wisdom and the spirit in pre-Christian texts like the Wisdom of Solomon was an important influence on the New Testament writers and the early fathers. Did you already read 1:7? I think you did.
No.
Okay.
For the Spirit of the Lord hath filled the whole world, and that which containeth all things hath knowledge of the voice.
Okay, so in 1:7, we meet our first example of the author's attempt to restate the Jewish faith in the language of the new Greek environment. The thought of God's omnipresence, with which he is attempting to frighten his opponents, is found in the Old Testament, but when the text goes on to describe the Spirit of the Lord as that which holds all things together, it is using a Stoic technical expression for the logos, or world soul, and that's the word used for Jesus, obviously, or word. I should say, because that's what it means. It means word.
Yeah, this omnipresence thing comes up again, which I don't see how you could be separated from God if the Spirit of the Lord hath filled the whole world, unless your action.
Unless you're getting thrown out of the world.
Yeah, if your action of having perverse thoughts literally removes you from the whole world, which I don't think is.
I would say it's not, but I would say it's the idea, I guess, that they're trying to get across.
I guess. Therefore, he that speaketh unjust things cannot be hid, neither shall the chastising judgment pass him by. For inquisition shall be made into the thoughts of the ungodly, and the hearing of his words shall come to God, to the chastising of his iniquities.
Yeah, so this entire section, we've seen a lot of references to the power of speech. Yeah, we plenty of stuff to, let's see, words, jealous ear, sound of grumbling, tongue, slander, lying mouth. Yeah. Quite a lot of it.
And it's not just speech, but as was established earlier, that this God has knowledge of the content of people's hearts as well. So that's where they thought thoughts were once upon a time.
Yeah.
Yep. For the... For inquisition shall be made in the thoughts of the ungodly, and the hearing of his words shall come to God, to the chastising of his iniquities. For the ear of jealousy heareth all things, and the tumult of murmuring shall not be hid.
Yeah.
Keep yourselves, therefore, from murmuring, which profiteth nothing, and refrain your tongue from detraction, for an obscure speech shall not go for naught, and the mouth that bellieth killeth the soul. Ooh.
So one thing I want to say is that this shares a lot of stuff with the wisdom of Ben Sira, right? Because he had a whole thing about rumors, didn't he?
Yeah, because...
And slander.
Because a major thing for Ben Sira was, the popularity of your name.
Yeah, his reputation.
Well regarded you are.
That's like all you got.
Though I find it odd that they say that the thoughts of the ungodly are going to be known by this God, but then say, therefore, don't murmur. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Like, it doesn't matter if you murmur or not. You already thought the thought.
I got nothing.
Also, apparently, souls can be killed, unless that's just allegorical.
Or maybe the translation is off. I don't know. What verse did you just finish?
I just finished verse 11.
Okay. Then we're not at the next.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm guessing. Okay. So the ominous warning against useless grumbling and against a lying mouth, which destroys the soul, prepares the reader to view critically the speech of the wicked, which will follow the opening exhortation.
Did you like my useless grumbling?
No.
It was useless.
I was trying.
I neither like nor dislike it. I'm completely
ambivalent.
No, I don't have mixed feelings about it.
Oh.
I just don't care about it.
Oh, no.
Seek not death in the error of your life, neither procure ye destruction by the works of your hands. For God made not death, neither hath he pleasure in the destruction of the living. What?
So a rather daring statement is made that radically separates God from death. God did not make death. On the one hand, the fact that God is said not to delight in the death of the living is consistent with the parallel phrases in Ezekiel. I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but that the wicked turn from their ways and live.
But we do know that God made
on
death.
the other hand, traditionally, God is understood to be the author of both life and death, the one who makes alive and kills. The question then arises as to which death is radically opposed to God. Is it mortality in general that God did not make? Is it death as punishment for injustices? Is it the ultimate death that signifies an ultimate separation?
But he literally punishes injustices with death multiple times in the Bible.
Yes, he does. Absolutely. Let's see.
He also definitely takes pleasure in the destruction of the living. You know, in Genesis 6:6, where he's like, "And the Lord grieved in his heart that he created man." And,
sure. Well, no, I think the whole point there, specifically, was it's like, I gotta kill him. I'm not very happy about it, but I gotta kill him. But although there are...
Oh, what about that one time where it was said God killed a bunch of guys and then had a really good time?
Oh, I don't remember that exact verse that you're referencing in your vagueness.
Extreme vagueness.
What about all those times that he killed people just for being around the Ark of the Covenant?
He didn't like doing that.
Yeah, that was. I'm sure he actually kind of.
You know what? He takes pleasure in the smell of dead animals being cooked. That's death too.
Yes, he does.
He definitely takes pleasure in that.
Or is that just savory life? Ooh.
Wow.
Because food is life. Think about it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, if we're defining animals functionally, as
I would
food,
say Deuteronomy.
Humans the same way, right?
I would say Deuteronomy 28. Do you remember that stuff in Deuteronomy 28?
Deuteronomy 28.
Yeah. That's where he specifically says that he will enjoy it.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not an act of him enjoying it, but he is saying that he will enjoy it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Solomon, or if that is your real name, you're wrong. For he created all things that they might be, and he made the nations of the earth for health. And there is no poison of destruction in them, nor kingdom of hell upon the earth. Kingdom of hell.
Yes. What verse is that?
That was verse 14.
Okay, so creation itself is being drawn into close parallel with God. God is said to have created all things for good. This close parallel between God and the cosmos prepares the reader for the positive role the cosmos will play in helping the cause of the just in the rest of the book. At the same time, the realm of death is being separated from the realm of creation and the cosmos. All that exists is described as wholesome. There is no destructive poison in creation, and the power of Hades does not reside on earth. The death that the author dissuades the reader from bringing on through injustice is not some destructive power that resides somewhat magically in the forces of the cosmos. Rather, the power to bring on such a death resides in the free decision of human beings. Okay, I see. Okay. A little bit more on this whole death thing. So at this point, the author brings in the antithesis life and death, the principal theme of the following chapters. So, of course, he's taken from a lot of biblical texts that we already covered. So the forces of, good and evil, life and death, chaos and order, these forces symbolized by Mot, death, the shepherd of the dead in Sheol, Hades in Greek mythology.
If I remember correctly, Mot kills Baal.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and then his body's cut up into tiny little pieces and scattered by Baal's wife. Or his daughter.
I don't remember like that.
I was reading the Wikipedia article about it.
Yeah, that'll get you the precise answer.
That's kind of close to the Osiris thing. I don't know if that is how it is or not. So either way. So these forces, symbolized by Mot/death, the shepherd of the dead in Sheol, Hades in Greek mythology, are always seeking to rise up from the underworld to overwhelm the inhabited world. Using Isaiah 28:15 as a peg on which to hang his thoughts, the author accuses his opponents of being in league with death and releasing these destructive forces into the world. He adapts this old mythological language for its own purposes and takes what is, in effect, the dualist option. God is on the side of life. He has created order out of chaos in order that life may flourish. This provides the theological basis for the belief in the immortality of the soul. But verse 13a directly negates the widespread Old Testament belief, still pushed forcefully by Ben Sira, that death was decreed for human beings by God. Mm-hmm. Probably to the author's chagrin, his opponents, as cited in chapter 2, are able to draw on Old Testament language to support their views about death.
All right, 2 more verses in this chapter. For justice is perpetual and immortal. But the wicked with works and words have called it to them, and esteeming it a friend have fallen away and have made a covenant with it, because they are worthy to be of the part thereof. That's the end of chapter 1 of Wisdom of Solomon.
Yeah, not super long, but there it is. And you know what? I'm gonna hand off these books to you. You got some stuff there. Maybe there's something you might want to say on the last verse that you just read.
Well, chapter 2 is, at least in terms of verse count, a little bit longer. But what we're doing here is getting an introduction to the speech of the wicked.
Yeah.
So the author introduces the speech of the wicked with an explanation as to the way they bring ultimate death upon themselves. Through their words and deeds, which flow from unsound reasoning, the wicked beckon the stark, negative reality of death. Personalistic language is employed to highlight the personal responsibility they bear for inviting death. They summon death through their words and actions. They consider death a friend. They pine away in longing for death. They even make a covenant with death, for they belong to death's company. This last image encloses the entire unit of 116 through 224. In both the opening and closing of the unit, the wicked are said to belong to the company of death. The idea of making a covenant with death highlights the deliberate and responsible choice implied in achieving an alliance. This death has not sought out the wicked. Rather, through their thoughts and actions, they have sought out death. The phrase is reminiscent of that in Isaiah 28:15. We have made a covenant with death, and with Sheol we have an agreement.
Yeah, so this is the whole, like, you brought this on yourself kind of thing.
So here Isaiah is criticizing the ruling classes during Hezekiah's reign for placing their trust in an alliance with Egypt, famous for its respect for the dead.
You could call it respect for the dead. I think that's a bit of an understatement, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Total reverence.
Complete reverence. All right. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already.
Yeah.
We really
share us
that.
with all of your friends, family, neighbors, living and dead.
You know, you probably have a Twitter or Facebook or some other kind of social media platform. So go share the stream on there too, because it all helps us out. All right.
Email those spam guys. Even they could watch this.
Oh yeah, and those the scammers too.
Yeah, email them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, chapter 2. For they have said, reasoning with themselves, but not right, the time of our life is short and tedious, and in the end of a man there is no remedy, and no man hath been known to have returned from hell. So this is death is finite. Mm-hmm. Or death is final, I guess.
Yes, final. Not final.
I don't know why I said final. Final.
So much of the imagery in this section 1 through 5 echoes the depiction of human sorrow and limitations that can be found in other sapiential works such as Job and Ecclesiastes. The book of Psalms and Proverbs also provide parallels for the imagery used in this reflection. Still, a number of images and concepts throughout the section depicting the reasoning of the wicked can be seen to have been borrowed from Hellenistic thought. The first line states the wicked person's negative judgment on life. It's short and sorrowful. So this is like Job, where Job 10:20 says, "Are not the days of my life few?"
And like Ecclesiastes, the whole thing, citing the whole thing.
Yes, read that.
Well. Anyways, why don't you tell me when you get to the end of verse 5, because this is a whole section on that. 1 through 5.
Sure. For we are born of nothing, and after this we shall be as if we had not been. For the breath in our nostrils is smoke in the speech of a spark to move our heart, which being put out, our body shall be ashes, and our spirit shall be poured abroad as soft air, and our life shall pass away as the trace of a cloud, and shall be dispersed as a mist, which is driven away by the beams of the sun, and overpowered with the heat thereof. And our name in time shall be forgotten, and no man shall have any remembrance of our works. For our time is as the passing of a shadow, and there is no going back of our end, for it is fast sealed, and no man returneth. So that's completely Ecclesiastes. Mm-hmm. That is completely, I want to say, Ben Sira. It's nihilistic. It's accurate. So yeah, good stuff.
Drink your water.
Okay, I will. That's the end of verse 5.
So let me talk a little bit about this stuff. Obviously, there's the Ecclesiastes aspect to it, but the idea of coming into being by mere chance was a commonplace explanation for the origin of the cosmos and all life in late Epicurean thought, and was found as well in preceding authors such as Leucippus and Democritus. The idea that human thought is but a spark in the beating of our heart is a unique formulation of the wisdom author. In the ancient world, both Greek and Hebrew, it was common to locate the reasoning processes within the heart. In Epicurean and Stoic thought, the association of the soul with fire was meant to express the superiority of reasoning to matter. But the wisdom author uses the image of reasons being a spark in the heart to show its transilatoriness and perhaps even its insignificant. When the spark is extinguished, every function ceases, the body turns to ashes, and the soul dissolves like empty air. Since much of the imagery employed in this unit has concrete parallels to other biblical sources, we can legitimately ask, where is the difficulty or fallacy in the reasoning? The author has alerted the reader at the outset that the wicked reason unsoundly. The difficulty in their logic does not rest in the assertion of the inevitability of mortality, but in the negative judgment of purposelessness in that they ascribe to it. Here's the crux of the erroneous reasoning of the wicked. They claim that we have come into the world by mere chance, and afterward it will be as though we never have been. The wicked espouse a purely mechanistic concept of life. They deny any form of life beyond mortality and any form of divine intervention at death. Just as no divine being gives purpose to life at the beginning, so also there is no divine reality that awaits humans at the end. Perhaps it is for this denial of divine relevance that the wicked are introduced as the ungodly. This designation for the wicked will continue throughout the author's rebuttal. Essentially, what the wicked's rumination on life expresses, couched as it is in poetic imagery, is that life in the face of death is void of meaning. The wicked's preoccupation with physical death issues in a judgment that portrays despair and hopelessness. Now, obviously, we have that bit in Ecclesiastes. Chris pinned the T-shirt.
Do that.
Everything is meaningless, completely meaningless. So they might be borrowing some of that from here. I want to read part of this from Eerdmans as well. So after his introduction, the author begins his argument proper by first setting up the views of his opponents and then proceeding to denounce them. The practice of ascribing imaginary speeches to one's opponents is a constituent element of the genre of the Hellenistic diatribe, upon which the author seems to be modeling his text. The opposing position, as described in these verses, seems to be the kind of practical atheism condemned in the Old Testament. For example, Psalms 10:4, 14:1, 73:11 through 12.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess he called it practical atheism, so I guess fine.
Yeah, and 1 Enoch 102, 6 through 8. In 212 and 310, its proponents seem to be described as renegades from the Jewish faith. For the group criticized in texts like these, it seems as if belief in God's maintenance of justice in the world has receded, along with, in some cases, the belief that he can or will do anything at all. Like the gods of the Epicureans, he is relegated to some far-off corner in the universe, neither interfering in human affairs nor being in any way affected by them. Scholars have discussed at length the precise identity of our author's opponents, but without reaching any agreed conclusion. What the author is depicting in the wicked's negative judgment on death is not so much a particular group of apostates as the reasoning process which leads to positions that threaten the community. Many parallels to the sentiments expressed here can be found in Greek sources, but much is also drawn from the Old Testament, especially Ecclesiastes, Job, and Isaiah 22:13.
Yeah, I'd say so. All right. So verse 6?
Yeah, let me know when you get to the end of verse 9.
Okay. Come, therefore, and let us enjoy the good things that are present, and let us speedily use the creatures as in youth. Okay, so use the creatures as in youth. So are they saying that... So, I mean, they want to, do things right now. They don't want to wait to do something that's pleasurable, right? Use the creatures as in youth. So is it like, I don't know.
It's poetic imagery.
Well, sure, but are they?
But I mean, use the creatures as in youth,
like a young bull or something. Like I don't know.
Could be a number of things. It doesn't have any commentary on it.
Bummer. Okay. Man, something always gets caught in my throat when we're on this show. It always feels dusty.
Oof. Maybe because it's dusty down here.
That's a good point. Let us fill ourselves with costly wine and ointments, and let not the flower of the time pass us by.
Yeah, so this is like...
Oh, yeah, fleeting, and you got to catch it while you can, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it's very hedonistic, right? So we're talking about some form of hedonism, which I hope these authors aren't comparing to Epicurean hedonism, because those are two very different things. Epicurus would not be down.
Epicurus was like, just fucking chill out, man. Like, just do your own thing.
Drink water, eat bread.
Yeah. Have a good time, but
be a moderate person.
Yeah. Let us crown ourselves with roses before they be withered. Let no meadow escape our riot. Oh, geez. Let none of us go without his part in luxury. Let us everywhere leave tokens of joy, for this is our portion and this is our lot. That's the end of verse 9.
Okay, so the phrase portion and lot parallels the author's critique of the speech of the wicked, both at the beginning, they belong to his company, 1:16, and the end, those who belong to his company, 2:24. In both cases, when the wicked are said to belong to death, the same Greek word for portion or company is employed. By making a vase of pleasure that leads to a grasping for power through violence their project in life, the wicked unwittingly bring upon themselves the very realities they so despise, weakness and death. Two main proponents have been proposed as the target of the wisdom author's criticism in this section: Kovalet and the Epicureans.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
I don't see how... I don't think Kohelet would have been all about that hedonistic stuff.
Well, on the one hand, the exhortation to enjoy life does have certain parallels to that of Kohelet.
Kohelet did do a lot of drinking and other things. Remember?
But I don't think he was nearly...
He's not crazy.
But they are quite minimal.
Yeah, they're quite minimal.
Kohelet on numerous occasions calls for the enjoyment of life. Quote, There is nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. Ecclesiastes 2:24, 3:13, 5:18, 8:15, 9:7 through 9, and 11:9. In each case where Kovalet exhorts the reader to enjoy life, God's presence is assured. Either pleasure is seen as God's gift, or God is understood as one who sets a limit and calls excess into judgment, as in Ecclesiastes 1:9, 11:9 rather. Since the very presence or relevance of God is denied, or rather forcibly, by the wicked and wisdom, only with a strained effort could one construe the wisdom speech as a critique of the preacher in Ecclesiastes. On the other hand, the call to enjoy life is so diffused in the literature of the ancient world that it's difficult to pinpoint a single source for the wisdom author.
Life was so bad, nobody wanted to tell you to enjoy it.
Right? It was a favorite motto for funerary inscriptions. On a tomb inscription from the 11th dynasty in Egypt, we read, "Follow your heart as long as you live. Sprinkle perfumes on your head. Clothe yourself in fine linen. Anoint yourself with the most marvelous of essences." So the exhortation to pleasure became closely identified with Epicurus, but when Epicurus postulates pleasure as the goal to strive for, he does not identify pleasure with a dissipated life, but understands pleasure to be the result of sober reasoning. Even the garden gatherings associated with the followers of Epicurus were renowned for their simplicity and frugality. Other disciples of Epicurus promoted the famous discussion dinner party, whose attendees perhaps on occasion fell into excesses of drinking special wines and eating lavish foods. Mark Antony and Cleopatra adopted the customs of the symposium in Alexandria. Mm-hmm. It became customary on such occasions to spice the best of wines with fragrances and for attendees to adorn themselves in flowers. Lucian criticizes the waste associated with such gatherings. His description contains resemblances to the wisdom author's portrayal of the wicked people's exhortation to pleasure. "It is they," said he, "who buy expensive dainties and let wine flow freely at dinners in an atmosphere of saffron and perfumes, who glut themselves with roses in midwinter, loving their rarity and unseasonableness, and despising what is seasonable and natural because of its cheapness. It is they who drink myrrh."
We're going to learn more about these people. So how about we continue here?
Mm-hmm. What?
So we already know that they're nihilistic, which is great. And they're hedonistic.
Crazy hedonistic.
Yeah, crazy hedonistic.
Oh, they are. Uh-oh.
Well, they definitely seem, they're, like, the thing is, if they're trying to draw a parallel between enjoy your life and this, like, in comparison to just the phrase enjoy life, this is crazier. Okay. This is much more lavish.
This is milk life for all the fun you could
pretty
possibly have at the expense of everyone.
Yeah, how dare you party?
I wouldn't say this is necessarily at the expense of everyone yet, but we're going to keep reading. Here it goes. "Let us oppress the poor just man." Yep, there it is.
I was spot on.
Yep, there's the the verse right there. Let us oppress the poor just man and not spare the widow, nor honor the ancient gray hairs of the aged.
So this is the point of view of the wicked. Right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
This is stuff that we've seen in tons of other books.
Yeah.
Right? The old and the widows and the poor.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to mention orphans.
I also wonder that. I was expecting orphans, actually. "But let our strength be the law of justice, for that which is feeble is found to be nothing worth." Oh, boy. Okay. So are these guys like oligarchs? That's what it sounds like.
I mean, they seem to believe that might makes right.
Yeah. So I think oligarch would fit that, right?
Perhaps.
"Let us therefore lie in wait for the just." Oh, okay. Is this going to be
That's like that bit. Yeah. I think it was in Proverbs
with
where
those
people are
ambushers,
lying.
guys just lying in wait
Exactly.
To jump them, right?
Let's see what they say here. So let us therefore lie in wait for the just, because he is not for our turn, and he is contrary to our doings, and upbraideth us with transgressions of the law, and divulgeth against us the sins of our way of life. So yeah, I would expect there to be a parallel there with that verse that we were just talking about. I think, yeah, that was in Proverbs, wasn't it? Yeah, it was in Proverbs, yeah. So I think that would make a lot of sense. And with some of the specific language that's used, yeah, this author definitely had the Hebrew Bible as a source.
Well, Eerdmans here says, the author seems to be succumbing to the perennial temptation to parody the opinions of one's opponents in order to make them easier targets. Seeley argues that he has been influenced by a theme from popular Greek and Roman philosophy, according to which a pious or godly figure preaches at the ungodly who fail to see the divine behind the phenomena around them, and with surprising speed is confronted with active hostility, end quote. Such hostility may escalate to a point of murder. The fate of Socrates would be a case in point. Nicholsberg argues that the wisdom of Solomon is dependent on an earlier, widespread literary genre of the wisdom/court tale. Examples of this genre are in the story of Joseph and his brothers, the story of Ahikar, the book of Esther, Daniel 3 and 6, and the story of Daniel, Susanna, and the elders. Nicholsberg thinks that Isaiah 52:13 through 53:12 reflects the same pattern, and hence the use in wisdom of the word child in 2:13.
Okay, we're going to get to that. Should I get to 2:13?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, because that's the very next one.
But the point is that the word also occurs in Isaiah 52:13 in the Septuagint.
Yeah. He boasteth that he hath the knowledge of God, and calleth himself the Son of God, or the child of God. So that's an interesting one.
Yeah, so the idea of the fatherhood of God appears in the Old Testament and was widespread in the late Second Temple Judaism.
Also, thank you, Jason. It's from Proverbs 1:11.
Oh. Yeah. Yes. So the fatherhood of God. The righteous man will claim to be God's son. It's probably a democratization of one of the titles of the Israelite king.
Mm-hmm. That would make sense. So either way, they're nihilistic, hedonistic oligarchs, but it looks like they claim to be faithful to some extent, right? Or maybe it's not claim to be faithful necessarily, but if they call themselves the Son of God. Okay, so they're just calling themselves the rulers then.
Well, it's another term that
so
was
it's like
used, but there's
I know, but I'm just saying that if they were to like, even if
when you get to the end of verse 20, there's extensive commentary on the fatherhood of God.
Oh, okay, great.
In the NIV commentary.
Okay, so he is become a censurer of our thoughts. He is grievous unto us, even to behold. For his life is not like other men's, and his ways are very different. We are esteemed by him as triflers, and he abstaineth from our ways as from filthiness, and he preferreth the latter end of the just, and glorieth that he hath God for his father. Let us see then if his words be true, and let us prove what shall happen to him, and we shall know what his end shall be. For if he be the true Son of God, he will defend him, and he will deliver him from the hands of his enemies. Let us examine him by our outrages and tortures, that we may know his meekness and try his patience. Let us condemn him to a most shameful death, for there shall be respect had unto him by his words.
Yep, so that kind of theme pops up in Isaiah, which is why some Christians talk about Isaiah prophesying about Jesus.
Yeah.
Right. But was that verse 20?
That was verse 20. And I would say, yeah, I mean, this is like the continuation of the trial sort of thing, right?
Yes. But like I said, there's extensive commentary here. So bear with me.
I will.
And drink your water.
That's a good idea. I should.
So two of the claims of the just that fundamentally contradict the nihilistic judgment of the wicked are the fatherhood of God and the sonship of the just. Moreover, the particular aspect of this filial and paternal relationship that the wicked question in their counter-accusation is the just trust in God. All three themes of God's fatherhood, the sonship of the just, and their trust in God, have their root in the Psalms of Lament. The fundamental stance of the one who laments is to trust in God despite all odds. But I trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. Psalm 13:5. There's other examples of this. I'm skipping past those. They're also in Psalms. Just as the wicked in wisdom accuse the just of unfounded trust in God, so also the wicked in the Psalms of Lament deride the just for their trust in God. Many are saying to me, there is no help for you in God. Psalm 3:2. Commit your cause to the Lord. Let him deliver. Let him rescue the one in whom he delights. Psalm 22:8. There's more examples. I'm skipping past them.
Sure.
The fatherhood of God is an image that has its sources in the devout and religious prayer of the Psalms and in the messianic text in which the king/Messiah is the adopted son of God. To describe God's loving care for the weak, the Psalms speak of God as a caring father. Father of orphans and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation, Psalm 68:5. As Father, his compassion for his children, so the Lord has compassion for those who fear him, Psalm 103:13. Also Deuteronomy 130-31, and a bunch of other things as well.
Yeah.
The theme of adoption that marked Israel's relationship to God in monarchic theology stresses the fatherhood of God. He said to me, you are my son, today I have begotten you, Psalm 2:7. He shall cry to me, you are my father, my God, and the rock of my salvation, Psalm 89:26, 2 Samuel 7:14. Various formulations for the phrase son of God are attested throughout Scripture with differing nuances. A holy people in Deuteronomy 14:1-2, restoration of Israel, Hosea 2:10-11, vocation, Hosea 11:1. Still, one particular prophetic source can be identified in the author's formulation of the opposition between the wicked and the just. The suffering servant of Isaiah.
That's a fun one.
Yep, especially the fourth servant song. In Wisdom 2:13, the wicked recall the just's claim to be the children of God. The Greek word for child, I think it's pais, can also mean...
it would be pais.
Pais. Can also mean servant. In fact, the Septuagint translates the Hebrew word for servant, eved, in Isaiah alternatively as child and as servant, doulos.
Doulos.
It's D-O-U-L-O-S.
That O-U is pronounced just like a ooh.
Okay.
Doulos.
Okay. The term is meant to express a special relationship between the Lord and the servant. It's precisely this special relationship of the just to hold God to God that the wicked hold in derision. Just as the servant suffers a shameful death and is despised by others, Isaiah 53:3 and 7, so also the wicked propose to inflict shameful death on the just. A major difference between the persecution of the just in wisdom and the servants in Isaiah is the vicarious suffering of the servant. For the obvious reason of the developed antagonism between the just and wicked in wisdom, the theme of the vicarious suffering of the servants in Isaiah was dropped. The final part of the wicked's speech constitutes their counter-accusation against the just. They decide to put the just one through the trial of an ignoble death to test whether his claims are true. Of course, the test is a rhetorical one. The wicked inflict...
They just want to hurt people.
Yeah. The wicked inflict on the experience of mortality.
Let's see if he'll live or die if we kill him. Wow.
Well, no, that's... It's more about suffering, right? So taken as a whole, the speech of the wicked contains a logic that involves a progressive dynamic of evil. The negative judgment on mortality expressed through poetic imagery provides a basis for an amoral perspective on life. The commitment to transient youthful pleasures simply masks the underlying despair that is dimmed or softened through the clamor of busy activity. The other side of the adulation of youthful pleasure is the despising of human weakness and the reliance on power. The sinister side of the nihilistic judgment on life emerges with frightening clarity until the blatant and brutal project to kill the just reaches the climax. What had begun as a poetic rumination on mortality ends with a frightful project to inflict a shameful death on the just. The wicked speech progresses from a nihilistic judgment on life to a project in life that embraces sensuality, that in turn despises weakness and relies on power, and that finally, when challenged, unmasks itself as an unbridled license to brutal violence. So, there is your commentary on those verses.
That's great. I still have about 5 verses with this chapter. So
yeah, and I'll deliver more commentary when you're done.
Great. These things they thought and were deceived, for their own malice blinded them, and they knew not the secrets of God, nor hoped for the wages of justice, nor esteemed the honor of holy souls. For God created man incorruptible, and to the image of his own likeness he made him. That's straight out of Genesis.
Yes.
Well, with a little bit of a variation there, right? Because because it's plural in Genesis.
Copy paste is really good, but they don't want the copyright machine to get it, so they changed it a little.
It's plural in Genesis. But by the envy of the devil, death came into the world, and they follow him that are of his side. And that is the end of the chapter. So there's a lot of stuff there that's obviously referencing Genesis.
Yes,
but is markedly different.
And if you would like to provide some commentary on those verses you just read, I'll be right back.
Great. Okay, so that's verses 21 through 25 there. So having completed his attempt to describe his opponent's point of view, the author now turns to begin his refutation of them. He argues that they have completely misunderstood the way in which God deals with human beings. Not only is there a definite recompense for being righteous, but in saying that death is the end, the apostates are unaware of God's purpose in creating humankind. The righteous fulfill this purpose by sharing in the immortality, which is part of God's own nature. Only the wicked experience death in any real sense. The righteous only seemed to have died. And that comes by a little bit later, apparently. In 222, the text connects back to the earlier view of Israelite wisdom teaching that there is a definite reward for being righteous and wise, albeit one in this life. But the books of Job and Ecclesiastes had denied this connection between piety and earthly blessing. However, our author can bypass this critique of Job and Kovalet by stressing that, yes, there may be no reward for righteousness in this life, but there certainly will be after death. And that's classic. Yeah, then those last couple of verses there, so 23 and 24 represent a milestone in the development of Jewish theology. For in conflict with the Old Testament tendency to make God the author of both good and evil, wisdom here promotes Mot or death into the devil and lays on him the responsibility for bringing death into existence. The Greek word behind the translation devil is diabolos, and that translates the Hebrew Satan in the Septuagint.
So, if you're enjoying the stream so far, give us a like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, family, neighbors, the living and the dead. And I will get us into chapter 3.
To identify the serpent of Genesis 3 as Satan or the devil or as the devil's agent, the serpent is not explicitly mentioned, and then attribute to him the origin of death is certainly a new move in Jewish theology, but already in the more mythological Old Testament version of creation, Leviathan and Yam, or the sea, are depicted as serpentine. In the Old Testament, Satan appears as a member of the heavenly court whose function reflects his name, the accuser. And we've covered that plenty of times before.
Yeah, and obviously serpentine creatures have been common in mythology as evil. I mean, dragons is one thing. That's probably the biggest thing that is covered in the hero's journey typically is...
dragons.
Yeah, dragons. Slay the dragon, get the princess, whatever. It's that kind of thing.
Classic.
Yep. Chapter 3. But the souls of the just are in the hand of God, and the torment of death shall not touch them. Like we talked about in last week when we were reading, I think it was in the Alphabet of Ben Sira, they talked about a number of people who did not die.
Ah, yes, that's right. That's right.
Except for that one dude who
Jim Mages is here.
Oh, hey, Jim Mages.
I haven't seen Jim in a while.
Hey, what's going on,
We
man?
got a whole chapter, Jim.
Yeah,
Don't
we
you
got a
worry.
chapter.
You get a whole chapter.
But you remember that dude in the Alphabet of Ben Sira who stole the Angel of Death's sword and then like went around in heaven?
That's right. Oh man, I love
like,
that
can
book.
I go and see where all the great heroes
He's like,
are?
here you go.
And he's like, yeah, let's go. And then he's like, can I borrow your sword? And then Death's like, I guess. And then he jumped a fence basically with the sword and like laughed at Death for 3 weeks or whatever.
It's pretty good stuff.
7 years.
7 years, my bad.
Pretty good
like,
stuff.
Yep. So he
No
didn't
one die?
He went to heaven and then he went to hell because they were like, come on, man, give him his sword back. It's kind of like the Grim Adventures of Billion Man.
Yeah,
It
kind of.
feels like that could have been an inspiration to it.
Yeah. Anyways, chapter 3. I read the first verse there. In the sight of the unwise, they seemed to die, and their departure was taken for misery, and they're going away from us for utter destruction, but they are in peace. And though in the sight of men they suffered torments, their hope is full of immortality.
Yeah, and immortality there. Let's see. To be in peace intimates the fullness of rest and well-being. The hope of immortality refers to the author's declaration that justice is immortal. This noun, justice, along with its adjective, immortal, athanatos, is late and quite rare in the Septuagint, which is interesting. And the word for death is just thanatos. So athanatos is without death.
Thanatos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Afflicted
Not
in
death.
afflicted in few things, in many they shall be well rewarded, because God hath tried them and found them worthy of himself. As gold in the furnace, he hath proved them, and as a victim of a holocaust, he hath received them, and in time there shall be respect had to them.
I don't know when they did this translation.
Yeah.
But they should have thought about that a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, the thing, okay, so maybe it was before, World War II.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's really hope. Let's really hope this specific translation was done before World War II.
Is there commentary on that? Verse 6?
Verse 6. All right, let's see.
I gotta fix this. It's the Second Great War. They called it that.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
man.
Thank you for...
let's keep it with the style at the time.
I am trying to find something on verse 6. Oh, actually, yeah, here it is. The two metaphors that facilitate the notion of the transformation of the just in the context of God's testing are borrowed from metallurgy and the temple cult. Both metaphors share the image of fire as the element that causes transformation. The transformation of the just is compared to God to gold being tested or purified in fire. The testing of gold in fire has the double function of verification and purification. The second metaphor, the burnt offering, accentuates the union between the just and God.
So when they refer to the victim of a Holocaust, they mean literally the term Holocaust, death by fire.
Okay. Right. The just are literally compared to a burnt offering that, though consumed by fire, is accepted by God as a pleasant fragrance. Oh, there we go again. If the metaphor of gold's being tested in fire stresses transformation and purification, the second metaphor stresses God's acceptance and union with the just.
Well, it's just an unfortunate phrase that
it is an unfortunate phrase.
The just shall shine and shall run to and fro like sparks among the reeds. They shall judge nations and rule over people, and their Lord shall reign forever. They that trust in him shall understand the truth, and they that are faithful in love shall rest in him, for grace and peace is to his elect. But the wicked...
Oh, here's something cool. So that's a direct refutation of the Deuteronomic and earlier wisdom view that one could deduce people's state of grace from the suffering they were undergoing or the material blessing they were enjoying. 3.4a appears to attribute to the author's opponents the conservative dogmatic note of Job's comforters. However, by the time that the Wisdom of Solomon was written, Judaism had taken the point made by the Book of Job and by Kovalet and adopted on a widespread basis the explanation for suffering, which we see here.
But the wicked shall be punished according to their own devices, who have neglected the just and have revolted from the Lord. For he that rejecteth wisdom and discipline is unhappy, and their hope is vain, and their labors without fruit, and their works unprofitable. Which, of course, if you've read Psalms or any other number of books, you know that the wicked are actually quite profitable and happy. And
but only for now.
No, only for now.
That's gonna stop.
The just may suffer for their entire lives,
but you know what? In the end, they win.
In the afterlife.
Yeah, they win eventually.
Oh, man. Their wives are foolish, and their children wicked. Their offspring is cursed.
Oh, boy.
For happy is the barren, and the undefiled that hath not known bed in sin. She shall have fruit in the visitation of holy souls. And the eunuch that hath not wrought iniquity with his hands, nor thought to wicked things against God. For the precious gift of faith shall be given to him, and a most acceptable lot in the temple of God.
So the whole point here is that even though these people cannot reproduce, that's okay, because at least they're not sinners. I'm pretty sure that's what they're trying to get across.
Yeah, it's what they're trying to get across, but it comes off as antinatalist.
Yeah, it kind of is.
For the fruit of good labors is glorious, and the root of wisdom never faileth. But the children of adulterers shall not come to perfection, and the seed of the unlawful bed shall be rooted out.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess you just kill them, right? That's justice.
Or you root them.
Or you stop them from having kids.
By becoming eunuchs who love God.
Yes. So the barren woman and the eunuch are traditional images of curse and misfortune. The corollary image of blessing is that of fruitfulness. The abundance of children was considered a major sign of God's blessing, of course. The gift of children was a sign of blessing associated with the Abrahamic covenant, and also in a particular manner with the Deuteronomic covenant, Deuteronomy 30:16. Sterility for both women and men was considered a grave misfortune. The eunuch was barred from the priesthood and the assembly of the Lord. As such, the images of the barren woman and the eunuch are extreme examples of human limitation and weakness. Oh, okay.
Of course, when they talk about these being relatively good things because they're gifts of precious faith and stuff are coming to them, and the fruit of their labors is good and glorious, right? That goes against the ideas put forward by Ben Sira, where like the whole point of life essentially is to have children that carry forward your good name.
Yeah, look better with your kids being like, yeah, Dad was great.
And if they live long, they shall be nothing regarded, and their last old age shall be without honor.
And no honor.
No honor. And if they die quickly, they shall have no hope, nor speech of comfort in the day of trial.
I'm sure that's what happens when you die quickly.
For dreadful are the ends of a wicked race.
What verse is that?
That's the last verse, verse 19.
Oh boy. So the particular nuance that the wisdom author is deriving from the image of hopelessness of the children of adultery is that the wicked's hoped for consolation will turn to nothing. Children represent hope and strength. They provide a guarantee for the future. However, for those who practice injustice, all the apparent advantages that have been thus gained will fail, like children of an adulterous relationship. The fruit of wickedness, contrary to its appearance of blessedness, will become a curse. The wicked had declared might to be their right, and they judged weakness to be useless. Back in 2:11, the author is focusing on the image of fruitlessness as an external sign of might and strength, and of fruitfulness as an external sign of might and strength, and fruitlessness as an external sign of weakness and helplessness.
Of course, the author's also a racist.
Yeah, at the end there.
Yes.
But you know what? They're sinning. How could they?
Oh yeah, and they're sinning because of their wicked race. Well, I hope you all have enjoyed the Wisdom of Solomon that we've been reading. This was your choice.
This was your choice.
You got something out of it. You learned one thing, like that word that we forgot that was useful earlier. That was a cool word.
Holocaust?
Something like diptych?
Yeah, diptych. Yeah.
Yep. Well, if you enjoyed the stream today, first of all, check us out on Sundays because we're going to be here on Sunday.
Yeah, we are.
Also, check out our Amazon wish list. By the way, thanks.
Yeah, Landon, you are awesome. So here's a list of books that Landon got us.
It is a lofty list of books, which will surely bring us many fruitful, good deeds.
Reads.
Yeah. Good reads, yeah.
Yeah.
So he picked up the book on the Watchers that's been on our wish list for forever. Picked up multiple books from the Library of Early Christology, which I've been wanting to get books from there, but I wasn't sure. I haven't seen too many reviews from that, I guess that monograph series, I think.
Well, it'll certainly be useful once we get to the New Testament.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I just like Christological stuff in general. So here are just a few of the titles. Old Testament Yahweh texts in Paul's Christology, The Name of God and the Angel of the Lord, Angelomorphic Christology, The Jewish Roots of Christological Monotheism. And I just started reading that last one last night.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if you also want to contribute to us by going on our Amazon wish list and buying us books, we will definitely read them. We'll use it in our videos that we produce for you. You're investing in your own education and entertainment without even having to do the work of
actually reading it. Yeah, exactly. That's amazing for you. What a great deal.
Yeah. If you want to support us in another way, you can check us out on Teespring. We have a pinned Teespring.
Yes.
And if you want that T-shirt, go ahead and check out Patreon, and we got a $10.
Yes, Patreon. That's a new one. Yeah.
And you can be a Patreon there.
Yes,
and get the $10, and you can get the wheel. And I phrase things so well. You can continue with the spiel.
Okay, $10 a month gets you a spot on the wheel.
$1 a month gets you our video scripts.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Come on,
even better than the Wisdom of Solomon. Ours is filled with real wisdom,
information.
And for like $5 a month, you can get Lawrence's excellent book.
Also, obviously the patron stuff is great. You get a lot of cool stuff, but when it comes to the show on Sunday, Landon will be on.
Oh.
Yeah. So we're going to have to, thank him in person.
And we're going to have to spin the wheel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which we could have done today.
Well, no, we do that
the Sunday thing.
Yeah, we do that on Sundays.
I mean, it's not like
it doesn't
carved
really
into
matter.
stone.
You're right.
Lawrence.
You're right.
Sunday
it isn't.
of every month is what we've said, but
it's just what we've kind of been doing.
Way.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. And also, Matthew, we did read Esther.
Yeah. We also read the additions to Esther.
We did together.
Yep. And we'll be reading the additions to, what was it?
Daniel.
Daniel has additions. And, if you want to support us in a different way that doesn't require money, Facebook, Twitter, we're on there. You can follow us.
Yeah, completely free to follow us there.
Of course, thank you to all the people in the chat. Jim, Jason, Matthew, Justin, all the good constants. Great to have you here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very helpful.
Wish Jim was here a little more.
Well,
hanging out with Jim.
Have you seen that man's mustache?
I haven't recently, no.
It's brilliant. It's a very impressive mustache.
So hopefully next week, Amazon will get off their ass and hand us
the actual book. Yeah, that'd be really nice. But thank you everyone for joining us. That's all the shilling we had to do. All the links are in the description. And we will see you on Sunday, but then Friday afterwards.
And maybe Saturdays eventually.
Yes, we'll work it out. Thank you.